Two stunning alien girls smell the human soldier, instantly enter mating season. The sky was green with a faint yellow haze, and the twin suns hung low, casting long shadows across the jagged rocks. The wind carried a strange, sweet smell that Luke could not identify. He pulled his helmet closer for comfort, but the air seemed safe enough. The mission was simple: join the alien research station, observe, and assist with security. Nothing more. At least that was what he had been told. As Luke walked across the landing platform, he noticed the station's tall, curved structure looming ahead. It was unlike anything he had seen before. The walls shimmered faintly, like they were alive. He could hear faint hums of machinery, or maybe it was the station itself breathing. The landing hatch opened silently, and a strange light spilled out, welcoming him into the building. Inside, the station was calm. The air was warmer, almost humid, with soft sounds that reminded Luke of a forest back on Earth. He lowered his helmet and shook off the last bits of dust from his uniform. That was when he saw them. Two figures stood near the entrance, staring at him. They were taller than humans, slim, and their skin had a subtle glow. Their eyes were larger than normal, bright and curious, and their hair shimmered with colors that shifted like liquid. Luke blinked. He had seen aliens in simulations and videos, but nothing prepared him for the real thing. "Welcome," one of them said, her voice melodic but firm. "I am Nova, and this is my sister, Lyra." Luke straightened and nodded. "I'm Luke. I'm here to assist your station." He tried to sound confident, though he felt a sudden nervousness. Nova and Lyra did not move closer, but they watched him like predators studying prey. Luke noticed that their noses flared slightly, almost as if they were smelling him. He frowned. He did not think humans had a scent that could matter to aliens, but something in their expressions told him it did. Nova tilted her head. You are different." Luke froze. "Different? How?" Lyra stepped forward slightly, her gaze fixed on him. "Your presence, it awakens something." Luke laughed nervously. "Awakens what?" Nova and Lyra exchanged a glance. Their eyes glimmered. Then, without warning, Nova's hands trembled slightly and Lyra's body stiffened. They were not moving in anger or fear. They seemed startled. Luke's stomach tightened. He had no idea what he was doing, but something in him was affecting them. Claire, the human commander of the station, appeared behind him. She was calm, authoritative, and already familiar with the aliens. "Luke," she said softly, "don't worry. They are reacting in ways that are unexpected, but it is not dangerous. Just give them space." Luke took a step back. "Unexpected? What do you mean?" "They have strong instincts tied to rare chemical triggers," Claire explained. "Humans have one of the rarest triggers in the galaxy." Luke raised his eyebrows. "Triggers? You mean like a smell?" "Yes," Claire said, "but it is more than that. Your presence can influence their behavior in ways even they do not fully understand." Nova and Lyra were still watching him. Their breathing seemed heavier, even though they were standing perfectly still. Luke tried to smile, but it felt awkward. "I swear I'm not dangerous. I'm just a soldier." The sisters did not respond immediately. Then Lyra moved her hand to her chest and took a deep breath, as if trying to calm herself. Nova's legs shifted slightly, grounding herself. Luke noticed that their skin glowed a little more brightly than before, faintly pulsing in rhythm with their breath. Claire sighed. "They are struggling. This is their species' mating instinct. It is normally triggered only once every few decades, but your human scent activates it instantly. This has never happened before." Luke felt a chill. "Wait, you're saying I'm causing this?" "Yes," Claire said gently. "It is not your fault. It is biology, and it is rare, very rare." Luke looked at Nova and Lyra. They were beautiful, yes, but right now they were more than that. They were focused entirely on him, not in a way that was friendly or hostile. They were responding to something deep inside themselves. He felt a mixture of pride, fear, and confusion. "What should I do?" Luke asked. "Do nothing for now," Claire said. "Do not try to interact physically. Let them calm. Humans have a strong sense of self-control, which will help them manage it. And remember, your presence is not dangerous to you, but it can overwhelm them if you act carelessly." Luke nodded, trying to process everything. He was a soldier. He had trained for hostile encounters, unknown planets, and strange alien life, but nothing had prepared him for this. Standing in the middle of the station, smelling the air and seeing the two alien sisters staring at him, he felt like a bridge between two worlds. Nova tilted her head again, her eyes softening slightly. Lyra mirrored her, but the tension was still there. Luke took a careful breath. He remembered Claire's words. Humans control themselves. That was what made them strong. He would show that strength, no matter what instincts were being awakened in these aliens. He took a step back and raised his hands slightly, palms open. "I am not a threat," he said. "I will respect your space. Please just breathe." Nova's chest rose and fell quickly. Lyra's breathing became slightly steadier. The glow in their skin dimmed a little, though it still pulsed faintly. Luke held still, showing patience. The sisters, for their part, were struggling to regain composure. Their instincts screamed at them, but their minds fought back. Claire placed a hand lightly on Luke's shoulder. "Good. That is working. Remember, your presence is a test of will for them. They must learn to control the instinct. You must simply remain calm and respectful." Luke nodded. He could feel the weight of it. This was not just a biological reaction, it was a cultural and interspecies test. If he failed, it could have consequences for the station and perhaps for human-alien relations across the sector. For the next few minutes, Luke stood quietly, observing. Nova and Lyra moved slowly, almost in a dance of control, trying to keep their instincts subdued. Their glowing skin dimmed and brightened in rhythm with their efforts. He watched, fascinated, and could not help but think how strange it was that humans, a young species, could have such power over life forms so advanced and beautiful. Finally, Nova spoke, her voice a whisper. You are unlike anyone we have ever known." Lyra nodded. "We must learn to resist, but it is difficult." Luke smiled gently. "I know it is hard, but you can do it. I will not hurt you. I just exist here." Nova blinked, a faint shiver running through her body. Lyra exhaled slowly, trying to calm herself. The moment was delicate, like standing on the edge of a cliff. But slowly, the sisters regained some composure. They did not completely relax, but they were no longer trembling. Claire watched them carefully. "This is remarkable," she said softly. "You are witnessing something no one has ever seen before. Humans are not only survivors, they are catalysts. Your presence changes things in ways we cannot predict." Luke felt a mixture of pride and unease. He had not wanted to be remarkable. He had only wanted to do his job. But now he understood that humans were more than soldiers. Humans were not just creatures who adapted, they were creatures who influenced the universe itself. The sisters moved to a side corridor, still keeping an eye on him. Their bodies glowed faintly, but the intensity of their reaction had lessened. Luke watched them go, feeling a strange connection. Even without words, there was understanding. The humans and aliens were now tied together by something older and deeper than culture, language, or reason. Luke breathed deeply, trying to calm himself. He had survived alien worlds, strange atmospheres, and hostile creatures. But this was a different kind of challenge. Here, the battlefield was instinct, and the victory depended not on weapons, but on patience, respect, and self-control. Claire approached him. "Come with me. We will explain more about their biology and how to behave. You need to understand this fully." What just happened is only the beginning. Luke followed her, glancing back once at Nova and Lyra. They were watching from the corridor, curious and cautious. The sisters' glowing forms were fading slowly as they regained control, but Luke knew they would never forget him. And he would never forget them. For the first time in his life, Luke realized that being human meant more than survival. It meant having an effect on the universe simply by being yourself. And in that moment, he understood that humans were extraordinary in ways that went far beyond technology, strength, or strategy. They were extraordinary because they could change the world without even trying. The station doors closed softly behind them, leaving the alien world outside. Luke felt a strange mixture of awe and responsibility. He had stepped onto a new world, and already he had changed it forever. After walking through the softly glowing corridors of the station, Luke followed Claire into a small observation room. The walls were smooth and slightly translucent, giving a faint view of the alien landscape outside. Luke sat down heavily on a bench, still feeling the tension of the earlier encounter. Claire stood near a console, studying data from the station's sensors. "They are trying to control themselves," Claire said quietly. "But it is not easy. Their species' instincts are stronger than any emotion humans feel. What you triggered, it is rare, almost impossible." Luke rubbed his neck. "I still don't fully understand. Why me?" "I'm just normal," Claire shook her head. "You are normal for a human, but to them you are special. Humans have a chemical signature that their biology recognizes as a mating catalyst. It has not appeared in centuries." Luke leaned back, feeling a mix of pride and unease. "So I'm like a biological alarm clock?" "Something like that," Claire said, though she sounded serious. And they do not fully understand it. Neither do we. But the fact that they are trying to resist is a good sign. They respect control. That is a trait they value highly. Your presence is a test. Luke took a deep breath. So I need to behave, not provoke them. Exactly, Claire said. Do nothing, speak when necessary, respect boundaries. They will try to recover, but your calmness helps more than anything else. Luke nodded. He could handle that. He had been trained for unknown encounters, and this was simply another unknown, except this one felt personal. Later, Luke walked through the main laboratory area. Nova and Lyra were there, working with alien equipment. Their glowing skin had dimmed, though faint pulses of light still moved beneath their surface. They glanced at him occasionally, careful to maintain distance. Luke noticed the subtle signs of their struggle, the way their hands flexed tightly, the way they tilted their heads slightly as if thinking, fighting instincts. He tried to ignore it, focusing on observing the equipment and the alien technology. But he could feel their gaze sometimes. He realized humans rarely had this kind of effect on other species. It was unsettling but also fascinating. Claire walked beside him. They are watching, yes, but that is part of their control. They need to monitor the trigger, the source of the reaction, so they can manage it. Luke raised an eyebrow. And the source is me. Yes, Claire said, but not in a way that makes you dangerous. You are the balance point. Your calmness allows them to regain composure. If you were anxious, it would worsen the reaction. Humans have that rare combination of control and influence. That is why they see you this way. Luke shook his head. I still don't feel special. I just walked through the door. Claire smiled faintly. Sometimes that is enough. Humans are remarkable without trying. That is what makes them unpredictable and valuable to the galaxy. Luke looked around the lab. Alien instruments hummed softly, measuring energy flows, biological markers, and environmental readings. The air smelled faintly sweet and metallic at the same time. He could see Nova checking a series of holographic graphs, while Lyra adjusted a device that emitted tiny pulses of light. They moved carefully, aware of his presence. At one point, Lyra's hand trembled slightly as she reached for a sample container. Nova immediately noticed and stepped closer, placing a stabilizing hand on her sister's arm. Luke could not hear their thoughts, but their body language was clear. They were trying to steady each other, fighting instincts that were demanding their attention. He realized that their struggle was not weakness, it was strength. They were managing biology that could easily overpower them. Humans valued self-control, yes, but these aliens were now facing a force from outside their species that challenged even their discipline. It made Luke feel proud to be human, even if it was scary. Later, during a briefing with Claire, Luke learned more about the station and its mission. The research team studied local ecosystems, alien life forms, and the unusual properties of the planet. He realized that Nova and Lyra were not just assistants, they were key researchers. Their species had advanced knowledge of biology, genetics, and environmental adaptation far beyond human technology. Yet, in this moment, they were vulnerable in a way no human could ever be. That is why humans are so interesting to us, Claire explained. You adapt. You survive, you influence not through strength but through presence. You exist and things change, that is your power. Luke frowned slightly. I didn't know existing could be powerful, Claire chuckled softly. You underestimate yourself. Humans are rare in the galaxy because of that very quality. You are unpredictable, resilient, and influential. What happened with Nova and Lyra is a perfect example. Your mere presence created a challenge for them, but your restraint allowed them to overcome it. Luke felt a warmth in his chest. Humans were not invincible, not the strongest, not the fastest. Yet somehow they mattered. That thought stayed with him as he returned to the lab. Nova and Lyra were working again, their movements more controlled than before. They had dimmed their glow further, signaling a degree of recovery. Luke approached cautiously, mindful of Claire's instructions. Are you okay? He asked softly. Nova glanced at him, eyes still bright but calmer. We are managing, Lyra nodded. It is difficult, but we are learning control. Luke gave a small smile. That's good, you're doing great. They exchanged brief glances, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. It was not friendship yet, but it was a start. They were learning that humans could be allies rather than a threat, and Luke was beginning to understand that this bond could grow into something extraordinary. Over the next hours, Luke helped with routine tasks in the lab. He carried samples, adjusted equipment, and observed alien procedures. Nova and Lyra worked alongside him, careful but cooperative. Occasionally, he noticed subtle signs, the faint pulse of their skin, the way they slightly leaned toward him before correcting themselves. It was a constant reminder that he had a rare effect on them, even when they tried to ignore it. During a break, Luke sat near a window, watching the twin suns dip closer to the horizon. The landscape glowed in shades of green and yellow, jagged rocks casting strange shadows. Claire joined him, carrying a small cup of warm liquid. "You handled the first encounter well," she said. "Nova and Lyra are surprised by your patience. Most humans would panic, run, or react aggressively. You didn't. That matters." Luke took the cup and nodded. "I just tried to stay calm. It's hard, but I think I can manage." "That is exactly what they needed to see," Claire said. "Humans are not just soldiers. You are more than your training. That is what makes you different." Luke took a sip of the warm liquid, feeling comforted. He thought about the sisters, still in the lab, glowing faintly as they worked. They were struggling, but they were learning. And he realized that humans could inspire that kind of learning, even in creatures far older and more advanced than themselves. Later, he returned to the lab for the evening cycle. The station's lighting shifted, casting soft shadows across the walls. Nova and Lyra were still at their stations, working diligently. Luke noticed subtle changes in their behavior. They were less tense, their movements smoother, and their attention less fixated solely on him. He approached slowly. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. Nova glanced at him and offered a faint smile. "Better." "You're calm, it helps," Lyra nodded. "We are regaining control, slowly but steadily," Luke smiled. "Good, I'm glad you don't have to handle this alone." The sisters paused, exchanging glances. It was not words, but understanding. They recognized that humans were not just catalysts. They could also be partners, guides, and allies. Luke felt the significance of that realization. Humans were rare, yes, but their rarity came with responsibility, and this responsibility could shape entire species. As the night cycle began, Luke reflected on the events of the day. He had encountered advanced aliens, triggered instincts he did not understand, and yet remained calm. That calmness had allowed two powerful beings to regain control of themselves. It was an experience unlike any other. He realized that being human was not about dominance or power. It was about presence, patience, and influence. His existence mattered not because of strength, but because of what humans represented. In that moment, Luke understood that humanity's place in the galaxy was not assured by technology or weapons, but by character. Outside the lab, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, leaving the world in soft twilight. The alien station glowed faintly in response to the fading light. Inside, Luke, Nova, and Lyra continued their work, each learning from the other. The day had been strange, challenging, and revealing. And yet it had also been a beginning, a first step in a relationship that could change both humans and aliens forever. Luke sat back, watching the sisters work. He felt a sense of connection, a recognition that humans were not just visitors in this galaxy. They were catalysts, capable of influencing life in ways unimaginable. And that realization filled him with quiet pride, hope, and a deep curiosity about the future. For the first time, Luke understood that being human was extraordinary, even when humans themselves did not realize it. And the journey had only just begun. The next morning, Luke awoke to a soft hum of the station. The twin suns had not yet risen, and the greenish light of the planet cast everything in a muted glow. He stretched and put on his uniform, aware that today might bring more challenges. The events of the previous day still weighed on him. He had seen Nova and Lyra struggle with instincts he could barely understand, and yet they had gained some control. Claire met him at the lab entrance. "Good morning, Luke. Today you will learn more about why this is happening." "Nova and Lyra are stable, but their reaction is unique. You need to understand it fully," Luke nodded. "I want to help, I just don't want to make things worse." "You won't," Claire said calmly. "Humans are not only survivors, your species can influence others simply by existing. That is why you are so important here." Luke followed Claire into a central chamber. The room was larger than the labs, with smooth walls that glowed faintly. In the center was a circular table, covered with alien instruments, charts, and containers filled with glowing liquids. Nova and Lyra were already there, standing a few steps away, their glowing skin pulsing faintly. Claire spoke first. "Nova, Lyra, please explain to Luke what is happening." Nova took a deep breath. "Our species has a mating cycle that occurs once every few decades." It is normally triggered by a rare chemical signal in the environment. That signal awakens instincts we cannot ignore. It is powerful, demanding, and immediate. Luke listened carefully, trying to follow. So, it is natural, but I caused it. Lyra stepped forward. Yes. Humans produce a chemical marker that perfectly matches the trigger our species lost long ago. When we detect it, our instincts activate even before we can think. Luke felt a shiver run down his spine. You mean just by existing I can do this? Nova nodded. You are rare. Other humans may not have this effect, but you are the catalyst. Luke looked at them, both awe and concern in his eyes. I don't want to harm you. You have not harmed us, Lyra said quickly. We are struggling, yes, but you have also shown us something important. Your presence forces us to control ourselves. That is unusual. Most triggers would overwhelm us entirely. Claire stepped closer. Humans are unique in the galaxy for this reason. You are strong not because of weapons or speed, but because of restraint. Your presence forces others to adapt. That is your power. Luke absorbed the words. He had always thought humans were ordinary, but here on this alien world he was extraordinary without trying. His calmness, his patience, and even his simple existence had an effect on beings far older and more advanced than himself. Nova's voice was quieter now. We have never encountered a being like you, one who triggers instincts but does not act aggressively. One who remains calm while we struggle. That is not common, Luke nodded. I just tried to stay calm. I thought that was what I was supposed to do. It is exactly what you were supposed to do, Claire said. Your calmness allowed them to regain control. If you had panicked or reacted impulsively, their instincts could have overwhelmed them. Humans are rare in the galaxy because you balance influence with restraint. Luke took a deep breath. I still feel like I'm just a soldier, nothing special. Claire smiled softly. That is human humility, but your biology and your mind together make you remarkable. You are not just a soldier, you are a catalyst. Nova and Lyra stepped a little closer, but not too near. Their glowing skin had dimmed further, though subtle pulses still moved beneath the surface. We are learning control, Nova said, but your presence, it is powerful. We need to be careful even now. Luke nodded. I understand. I will be careful too. Claire moved toward a console. I want to show you something. These readings are from yesterday. They measure the intensity of the reaction in Nova and Lyra. Notice the spike when you first removed your helmet. Luke studied the holographic display. Lines spiked sharply, showing a sudden increase in activity across the sisters' physiological markers. Wow, he said softly. That's incredible. It is, Claire said. But it is also dangerous, not to you but to them. That is why your behavior matters so much. You are the balance point. You influence, but you must also control yourself. That is why humans are extraordinary. Luke felt a mixture of pride and pressure. He had never thought that simply existing could matter so much. Yet here he was on an alien world, changing the course of 2 lives and perhaps even the understanding of an entire species. Nova spoke again, her voice calmer now. We have studied many humans in history. Most do not trigger this. You are unique. That is both fascinating and frightening, Luke swallowed. I don't want to frighten you, I just want to help. You already help, Lyra said. By existing and remaining calm, that is a gift we do not fully understand, but we respect it, Luke nodded slowly. He realized that humans had a rare trait. They could influence the galaxy not through force, but through presence. That was something no technology could replicate. Claire moved to the center of the room. Today, you will spend more time with Nova and Lyra. Observe. Help them work, keep your presence calm. Let them control their instincts while you remain steady. This is both an exercise and a learning opportunity. Luke followed the sisters into the main lab. The room was filled with strange instruments, glowing tubes, and holographic displays. Nova and Lyra moved with careful precision, controlling their breathing and the subtle glow of their skin. Luke carried samples, adjusted machines, and offered assistance without overstepping. He noticed small signs of progress. Nova no longer flinched at his movement. Lyra's hands trembled less as she handled delicate equipment. Their pulses of light had become steady, controlled, as if his calm presence was giving them strength. At one point, a small container of glowing liquid slipped from Lyra's hand. Luke caught it instinctively. Careful, he said softly. You're doing fine. She looked at him, eyes wide but calm. Thank you, she said quietly. You're calm, it helps more than you know. Luke smiled. I'm glad I just exist. Nova glanced at him, a faint smile forming. Existence can be powerful. We are beginning to understand that. As the day progressed, Luke observed more about the sisters' behavior. Their species was disciplined, intelligent, and highly adaptable. Yet the human presence challenged them in a way no technology or training could. He realized that humans had a unique role in the galaxy. They could influence even the most advanced beings simply by being themselves. During a break, Claire spoke to him privately. Luke, what you are experiencing is rare. Humans have never been seen as catalysts before. Your presence awakens instincts but also creates opportunity. You are teaching them restraint, patience, and control. That is extraordinary. Luke felt a deep sense of responsibility. He had never asked for this role, but he could not ignore it. I'll do my best, he said. I just hope I don't make a mistake. You won't, Claire said confidently. Humans have an instinct for balance. That is why you matter. You survive, you influence, you exist. That is your power. By evening, the sisters were more steady than before. Their glowing skin had dimmed almost to normal, though faint pulses still marked their presence. They worked efficiently, speaking to Luke occasionally, learning to interact without losing control. Luke realized that this was more than a lesson for them. It was also a lesson for him. Humans were extraordinary not because of strength or speed, but because of character. Their ability to influence, to teach through presence, and to remain calm under pressure made them a force that could shape the galaxy in ways no one had anticipated. As the twin suns set completely, leaving the alien world in soft twilight, Luke stood near the observation window. Nova and Lyra continued their work quietly. Luke reflected on the day's events. He had learned about their biology, understood the trigger, and seen the power humans held simply by existing. He felt a mixture of pride and humility. Humans were young in the galaxy, yet already they had the ability to change advanced species without weapons, without force, and without aggression. Their presence alone could shape behavior, influence decisions, and create new understanding. Luke realized that the galaxy had underestimated humans, and in that moment he understood that humanity's role was just beginning. They were catalysts, influencers, and teachers, even when they did not try, and the journey with Nova and Lyra was only the start. The station hummed softly around him. Luke, Nova, and Lyra worked together, learning from each other. The day had been long, strange, and revealing, but it had also been a beginning, a first step in a relationship that could change both humans and aliens forever. Luke watched the sisters carefully, noticing how they moved with calm precision, controlling instincts that had once threatened to overwhelm them. He understood now that being human was extraordinary, even when humans themselves did not realize it. And he felt ready to continue, no matter what the galaxy had in store. The next morning, Luke awoke before the twin suns had risen. The station was quiet, except for the soft hum of machinery. Even in the stillness, he could feel the weight of the previous days. Nova and Lyra had regained control, but he knew their struggle was not over. Their instincts were still strong, waiting for the slightest weakness. Claire met him at the entrance to the main lab. "Good morning, Luke. Today we'll test more than calmness. They are stable, but external stress can trigger the reaction again. You must remain steady. Your presence is more important than ever." Luke nodded, tightening his uniform. "I understand. I'll be careful." As he entered the lab, he noticed the sisters already preparing equipment. Their glow was faint but steady. They had learned some control, but subtle tremors in their hands and the occasional flicker in their eyes revealed the tension beneath. Luke felt a pang of sympathy. He could not imagine living with instincts that strong, ones that could overwhelm you at any moment. Nova glanced at him briefly and then at Lyra. "We are ready," she said softly. Luke nodded. "I'll help where I can." The day began with routine tasks, calibrating instruments, collecting samples, and monitoring environmental readings. Luke worked beside them quietly, careful not to move too quickly or startle them. Nova and Lyra responded to his presence with focus and precision, but Luke noticed small signs of struggle. A hand clenched briefly, a tremor in the glow of their skin, a faint shiver. Claire observed from a distance. "Notice how they control themselves," she said. "Your calmness reinforces their discipline. Humans have this rare quality, influence without force. That is why they respond to you differently from anyone else." Luke watched the sisters closely. He realized that this influence was not just biological, it was psychological. His steady presence reminded them of order, control, and patience. His calmness gave them a reference point to resist instincts that could easily dominate their minds. Midway through the morning, an alert sounded. A minor environmental anomaly had been detected outside the station. Dust storms were common, but this one was unusually strong. Luke and the sisters moved to the observation deck. The winds outside twisted in strange patterns, carrying sharp metallic particles. Nova's glow intensified slightly, and Lyra's breathing became quicker. Luke immediately noticed the change. Their instincts were responding to stress. The environmental disturbance had acted like a second trigger. "Stay calm," Luke said softly. "We'll handle this together." Nova took a deep breath and nodded. Lyra mirrored her. Their glow dimmed slightly as they focused on control. Luke realized that in this moment, his presence was more than a stabilizer, it was a guide. He could show them how to anchor themselves amidst chaos. Claire came to the observation deck. "This is the real test," she said. "External factors can amplify instincts. Watch carefully, Luke. Your behavior will influence their response." The storm raged outside, battering the station's reinforced windows. Nova's hands shook as she adjusted instruments to monitor the particles. Lyra's pulse quickened, a faint flicker in her glow signaling the struggle. Luke stepped closer, remaining calm and steady. "You're doing fine," he said softly. "Breathe, focus, you control this." The sisters exchanged a glance, acknowledging his words. Slowly, Nova's trembling hands steadied. Lyra's pulse became more regular. The storm outside continued, but inside the station, control returned. Luke realized that this was not just about biology, it was about trust. They trusted him, and that trust allowed them to regain mastery over their instincts. As the day progressed, the storm continued outside, making routine tasks more difficult. Instruments malfunctioned, lights flickered, and readings fluctuated wildly. Nova and Lyra worked efficiently but cautiously, aware that the smallest mistake could reignite their instincts. Luke assisted quietly, offering guidance only when necessary. At one point, a small container of glowing fluid tipped dangerously on a workstation. Luke caught it instantly, keeping his hands steady. "Careful," he said softly. "We have this under control." Lyra's eyes softened and her glow dimmed further. "You're calm, it helps more than you know," she whispered. Luke nodded. "I'm glad we're all learning." Nova glanced at him and added, "You are more than a soldier. You are a guide. We see that now." Luke felt a deep sense of pride. Humans were not physically dominant, but their presence had power. They could influence, stabilize, and guide even beings far more advanced than themselves. That realization settled over him like a quiet warmth. By midday, the storm outside began to subside. The dust and metallic particles thinned, leaving the alien landscape glowing in muted sunlight. The sisters exhaled, visibly relieved. Their glow returned to a steady, soft pulse. Claire approached them. "You have done remarkably well," she said. "You faced stress and external trigger, and yet you maintained control. That is rare. And Luke, you played a key role. Your presence and calmness allowed them to manage instincts that could have overwhelmed them completely." Luke smiled quietly. "It wasn't just me. We all worked together." "True," Claire said, "but humans have a rare ability to influence without direct action. That is why you are extraordinary." The sisters nodded, their bodies relaxing. Yet Luke noticed subtle signs that their instincts had not fully disappeared. They had learned to manage, but the potential for a reaction remained. Later, as the day turned into evening, Luke returned to the observation deck. Nova and Lyra were already there, quietly monitoring the environment. He joined them, watching the twin suns dip below the horizon. "You handled today well," Nova said softly. "Your calm, it allowed us to regain control during the storm." Luke nodded. "I just stayed steady. You did the hard work." Lyra added, "We are learning that presence can guide control. Your species, you are different. We are beginning to understand the power of that difference." Luke felt a sense of humility. Humans were not invincible, not faster or stronger than most species, but they had qualities that no technology or training could replicate. Their presence could shape behavior, guide others, and create trust where it had never existed before. Claire joined them quietly. "This is why humans are rare. You influence, stabilize, and adapt. You survive not just by skill, but by character. That is your power." Luke watched the sisters, noticing how they had regained balance despite the challenges of the day. He realized that humans had a unique place in the galaxy. They could influence life forms far older and more advanced simply by being present, by remaining calm, and by offering restraint when instincts screamed otherwise. As night fell, the station settled into quiet. Luke, Nova, and Lyra worked together to complete the day's tasks. Their bond was growing, not as friends yet, but as partners. Luke's calm presence, combined with their discipline, created a balance that allowed progress and understanding. At one point, Luke reflected on the events of the day. He had witnessed instincts far stronger than anything humans had, observed how external stress could amplify reactions, and seen firsthand the power of calmness and trust. He understood now that humans were extraordinary in subtle ways. They could shape the galaxy not through force, but through presence and influence. The sisters were quietly discussing readings in the corner, their glow soft and steady. Luke felt a quiet pride. He was part of something bigger than himself, something that could change both humans and aliens forever. Claire approached him once more. "Today was a test," she said. "You passed and the sisters passed, but remember, this is ongoing. Your presence will continue to influence them. That influence can be dangerous or beneficial depending on how you act. That is why humans are rare and important. You shape more than you realize." Luke nodded. "I'll be careful, I understand now." Nova looked at him, her voice soft. "We trust you, that is new for us. Most triggers would overwhelm anyone, but you help us control. We see that now." Luke smiled faintly. "I'm glad I just exist, that's all I can do." Lyra's pulse of glow dimmed slightly as she exhaled. "Existence can be powerful. You are teaching us restraint, patience, and trust. That is remarkable." As the twin suns set completely, leaving the alien world bathed in soft twilight, Luke stood quietly, watching the sisters work. He understood that the journey was far from over. Instincts were strong, reactions could flare unexpectedly, and challenges would continue. But he also realized that humans had a unique power: to influence without force, to stabilize without dominance, and to shape lifeforms through presence and trust alone. Luke reflected on the events of the day. Humans were young in the galaxy, yet their influence could challenge even the most advanced species. They were not the fastest, strongest, or most numerous, but they were remarkable because of restraint, patience, and the ability to guide others by example. He understood now that this was only the beginning. Humans were catalysts, teachers, and stabilizers in ways that no one had expected. Nova and Lyra had learned to manage their instincts, but they would remember the human soldier who helped them regain control. And Luke had learned that being human was extraordinary in ways beyond strength or skill. It was about character, calmness, and influence. The station hummed softly around them. Luke, Nova, and Lyra continued their work, each learning from the other. The day had been challenging, revealing, and full of tension, but it had also been a lesson in trust, presence, and the unique power humans held in the galaxy. Luke felt ready for whatever came next. The journey with Nova and Lyra was far from over, but he understood one thing clearly: humans mattered, not because of weapons or technology, but because of who they were. And that realization gave him quiet pride, hope, and determination. The next morning, the station was calm. The twin suns rose slowly, painting the alien landscape in soft green and gold. Luke walked through the corridors, observing the activity. Nova and Lyra were already at their stations, moving with steady precision. Their glow was faint but even, a sign that they had regained almost complete control. Luke felt a quiet satisfaction. Over the past days, he had witnessed instincts far stronger than anything humans experienced, and he had helped the sisters maintain control. It had been challenging, exhausting, and sometimes frightening, but now there was a sense of balance. Claire approached him, her expression calm but serious. "Today, Luke, you will see the final phase of this process. Nova and Lyra are stable, but this will test their self-discipline and your ability to maintain influence." Luke nodded. "I'm ready." The three of them entered the main laboratory. Instruments hummed softly, and holographic displays showed data streams from the planet's environment. Nova and Lyra were already focused, their hands steady as they prepared samples and calibrated machinery. Luke noticed subtle signs of lingering tension, the slight flicker of glow beneath their skin, the faint rhythm of rapid breathing, but nothing uncontrolled. Claire gestured to a console. "External factors are minimal today, but their instinct remains. They will continue to test themselves while you remain present. Your calmness will be essential." Luke stepped forward and settled near the sisters. "We'll work together," he said. "You don't have to handle this alone." Nova glanced at him, eyes softening. We trust you. Your presence, it guides us. That is new, but we understand it now. Lyra nodded. We are learning to manage instincts that were once uncontrollable. Your calm helps us focus. Luke smiled faintly. I'm glad. Let's get to work. The day passed with routine tasks. Luke assisted the sisters with collecting samples, adjusting instruments, and monitoring environmental readings. Occasionally, subtle shifts in their behavior reminded him of the strength of their instincts, but each time he remained calm, steady, and reassuring. Nova and Lyra responded, their glow stabilizing further with each passing hour. At one point, an unexpected reading appeared on a monitor. A chemical anomaly in the station's atmosphere triggered a faint pulse in the sisters' instincts. Nova's hands trembled slightly and Lyra's pulse quickened. Luke immediately stepped closer, his presence calm and measured. Breathe, he said softly. Focus, you control this. Nova and Lyra exchanged a glance, and slowly their trembling subsided. Their glow became steady again. Luke realized that humans had a rare ability to influence without force, to guide through presence, and to stabilize in moments of potential chaos. Claire observed quietly. This is why humans are extraordinary. You influence behavior without acting aggressively. You survive and teach at the same time. That is rare in the galaxy. Luke felt a quiet pride. He had always thought humans were ordinary, but here, on this alien world, his calmness had helped advanced beings regain control over instincts they had not faced in centuries. It was not strength or technology that mattered. It was character, patience, and presence. Later, as the day continued, Nova and Lyra worked more confidently. Their movements were precise, their glow steady, and their breathing regular. Luke noticed subtle smiles passing between them, small acknowledgments of their regained balance. They had learned to manage instincts that were overwhelming, and they had done so with his calm presence guiding them. During a break, Luke stepped to a window overlooking the alien landscape. The planet was beautiful, bathed in sunlight that reflected off jagged rocks and distant mountains. Claire joined him, carrying a small cup of warm liquid. You handled everything remarkably well, she said. Nova and Lyra have regained full control. Your calmness, restraint, and patience made this possible. Luke took the cup and nodded. I just stayed steady. I didn't do anything special. That is the point, Claire said. Humans are rare because your strength is subtle. You influence, guide, and stabilize. You survive not by force but by presence. That is extraordinary. Luke reflected on the past days. He had faced beings whose instincts could overwhelm almost anything. He had remained calm. He had guided them without words, simply through presence. That was human uniqueness. That was what made humans remarkable. He turned back to see Nova and Lyra approaching. We are ready for the final review, Nova said softly. We feel balanced. Your presence, it has helped us more than we can express. Lyra added, we have learned restraint and control. Your species, you are rare. You influence not with power, but with presence. That is remarkable. Luke nodded. I'm glad. I never thought just existing could matter so much. Nova and Lyra exchanged a glance. It does, Nova said. You have taught us patience, control, and trust. That is a gift we will remember. Claire stepped forward. The final phase is simple. Continue working together as you have. There are no external triggers today. This is to reinforce control and trust. Humans and aliens learning together, managing instincts and influence. The three worked quietly, efficiently, and with precision. Luke moved among them, assisting when needed but remaining calm, steady, and supportive. Nova and Lyra adjusted instruments, handled samples, and monitored the environment, their glow steady and soft. Luke realized that humans could teach even advanced species without speaking. Their behavior, presence, and restraint were lessons in themselves. Nova and Lyra had learned to manage instincts that could have destroyed focus, and Luke had learned that being human was extraordinary in ways subtle, invisible, and powerful. By the evening, the work was complete. Nova and Lyra stood together, calm, steady, and glowing faintly in soft light. Luke approached them. You did it, he said quietly. You managed everything perfectly. Nova smiled faintly. We could not have done it without you. Your presence, it guided us. Lyra added, you are more than a soldier. You are a stabilizer, a guide, and a teacher. We see now the strength humans have in ways beyond physical ability. Luke felt a deep sense of pride. Humans were young in the galaxy, but their influence could shape behavior, trust, and balance in ways no other species could. He understood now that being human was extraordinary, not through strength, weapons, or speed, but through character, calmness, and presence. Claire approached with a gentle smile. Today marks the end of this phase. You and the sisters have proven something remarkable. Humans are catalysts. Your presence influences life in ways no technology or training can. Nova and Lyra have regained full control, and they will remember this forever. Luke looked at the sisters. It was not just me, he said softly. We all worked together. Yes, Nova said, but humans have something unique. You influence without force, guide without words, and remain calm when instincts scream. That is extraordinary. Lyra nodded. We will carry this lesson forward. Your species, you are rare, and we respect that. Luke smiled faintly. I never thought humans could be extraordinary just by existing, but I see it now. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, leaving the world in soft twilight. The station glowed faintly, humming quietly with life. Luke, Nova, and Lyra stood together, a silent acknowledgement of the trust, control, and bond they had built. Claire spoke softly. This is the beginning, not the end. Humans are catalysts, teachers, and stabilizers. Your presence shapes life and behavior. Never forget that. You matter. Luke looked at the sisters, then at Claire. He felt a quiet pride and responsibility. Humans were not dominant, not invincible, but they were extraordinary because of who they were. That was their power. The sisters smiled faintly, their glow steady and soft. They had regained control, but they had also learned the value of trust, patience, and guidance. Luke realized that humans could shape relationships, balance instincts, and influence beings far older and more advanced than themselves simply by being present. As the station quieted for the night, Luke reflected on the journey. He had arrived as a soldier, unaware of the influence he would have. He had triggered instincts, guided beings through struggle, and taught restraint without realizing it. That was human uniqueness. That was what made humans extraordinary. Nova and Lyra approached him one last time before the station rested. We are grateful, Nova said. Your presence changed us. You taught us control, patience, and trust. That is a gift we will remember always. Lyra added, humans are remarkable. We see now that strength is not only in action, but in calmness, restraint, and guidance. You are extraordinary. Luke smiled softly. I'm glad. I never thought humans could do so much just by existing, but I see it now. The twin suns rose again the next morning, casting soft light over the alien world. The station hummed quietly, alive with activity, trust, and understanding. Luke, Nova, and Lyra worked together, calm, steady, and confident. Humans were young, but their influence was powerful. They were catalysts, stabilizers, and teachers. They mattered, and Luke understood that this was only the beginning of humanity's role in the galaxy. For the first time, he felt the weight and pride of being human, not because of strength, technology, or numbers, but because of who he was. That realization filled him with quiet determination, hope, and a sense of belonging in the vast, alien universe. The journey had ended, but the story of human influence, trust, and extraordinary presence was only beginning.